Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another edition of Damo's Team Talk coming out of round 17. And before I begin, we've finally done it. We've done it, ladies and gents. We have cracked the top 1K. I think it's only taken about 7 or 8 weeks of us knocking on the door ever so politely, rat-a-tat-tat, and then it became a bang, 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 and then it became a hip and shoulder to the door. And I'm convinced that the man himself, in Sean Darcy, Hodor, was behind the door, just holding it up, not letting me in.
Hold the door! Hold the door!
But now we've burst our way through the door off the back of a score of 2,589, which is a top 2% score for the week. And we have risen, and I love even numbers. When it comes to even numbers, even if it's a weekly score, if it's ranking, even better. In this case, we cracked the 1K, tick, but also we've gone up 158 spots to now sit an even 900. 900 just looks so perfect, so immaculate, so pristine. So we'll definitely take that. That is a big tick. So there we are. And of course, we are ranked inside the top 1%, but now inside the top 1K. Speaking of 1K, before we kick off and look at my team in a bit more detail, 1K is the number of the season, for the remainder of the season, I guess, for Liam and I here at SuperCoach Edge. Because, of course, if you haven't heard, we are trying to crack the 1K subscriber mark, which, as you can see down below there, that's our subscriber count as it stands, 872. So we're, 128 subscribers away from our grand total mark that we're aiming for of the 1K subscriber mark. And you may be asking, why 1K? Sure, it's an even number, looks good, look at just as good as the 900 that I've got in rank, but it means that it allows us to, I guess, monetize our YouTube channel. And the benefit of that is for you guys. So what we want to do is obviously give back to you kind folk that tune in to our content from week to week in the form of monetization, which allows us to then reinvest that back into the podcast in the form of offering more cash leagues for 2024 and beyond, which at the moment we're footing the bill for a cash league, just a single cash league for 2023, and they are proving quite popular. Some people have reached out via DM and asked us how they can get involved, and it has been through partly through our Patreon program, which has been a nice sort of kind gesture from the viewers and listeners of our content to join in and I guess, help prop up that cash league. The main thing is that from year to year, this is now our third season of operation here at SuperCoach Edge, but we are operating on a negative, or we're in deficit virtually, because we do have to pay, it's roughly around about $200 podcast subscription fee for our podcast platform Podbean, and beyond that it means anything else that in terms of giveaways, cash leagues, merchandise that we get made and stuff virtually is coming out of our own pockets, which is totally fine. But at the end of the day, if we can meet the 1K subscriber mark, it means that we can offer more goodies. We could offer in the form of, as I said, more cash leagues, merchandise creation, and we can sell them, perform giveaways as well, first and foremost. And aside from that, offer more giveaways, whether it be in terms of maybe AFL game tickets. We did the SuperCoach Plus subscriber giveaway at the early point of the season this year, and so on and so forth. So it would really allow us to reinvest back into you con folk, and I guess reward all of you, as I said, to give incentive for those people to tune in from week to week, obviously, but also give back to you guys and girls that have supported us across the journey. So, all in all, after that long discussion on that point, if you can help us out in the form of subscribing, there is a little red subscribe button, I think it's red, beneath the YouTube video below. You'll see that. Just click on that and you'll see this 872 will tick over. It won't be ticking over live, but if you tune in to our live stream on Thursdays when we go through the team sheet announcements, you'll be able to see that ticker, which we have up on the screen for that as well, tick over live. So all in all, if you can help us by supporting us, by subscribing. That would be absolutely fantastic. So thank you in advance. So let's jump into my team and go through how things looked coming out of the weekend. So obviously 2-5-8-9, pretty good score. Obviously helped in terms of going up in the ranking. First week that I've had a full premo team also. So super pleased with that. Should mention from the top as well, all of the team talk videos from here on out, probably to be expected, but they will be a little bit shorter in length, which is probably a good thing because a lot of mine go around about 30 to 40 minutes. But the pure fact is, as you can see there above, I've only got 2 trades in the bank, and I will be keeping those for as long as possible in case injuries hit, along with suspensions and whatnot that are on sort of veering on the James Sicily length side of things when it comes to suspension. So we have to keep them up our sleeve for as long as possible. But I will just still discuss potential ideas that I have for the trades that I could be using, or how I could be using them from week to week. And I do have an idea as to how I could use them for this week. But the plan is, just to put it sort of bluntly and to summarize, normally from year to year, in terms of the last trades that I've got up my sleeve after I've been able to, hopefully upgrade my team to a full premo, with those trades remaining, I keep them up my sleeve until the point where I've got virtually a trade every 2 weeks, or a trade covering the remaining, if I've got a trade every 2 weeks, if I've got, as it shows at the moment with 2 trades, I won't be using them until with 4 rounds to go, because it means I've got a trade every 2 weeks. Ideally, I'd like to have more, but as it's turned out with suspensions, injuries and whatnot, as we all know, it's kind of painted me into this corner. But that probably segues me into the final trade that I did in terms of the last primo upgrade on the weekend. And you can see there in M8, which is kind of what I brought him in for, and it is Callum Mills. I ended up trading, who was it? Let's have a look on the right-hand side of the screen there. Briggs, of course. It was kind of a bit of a toss-up. Do I trade out Marshall for a bit more money, or do I trade out Briggs, who, yes, I guess he had the advantage of being more of a pod, lower ownership compared to Marshall, but I think I already have enough pods as it is, especially in the form of Doherty, who I brought in prior to Mills as my second last upgrade, and he's kind of serving the purpose as a bit of, that pod premo that I've got up my sleeve. So I thought if I trade Marshall, it'd probably hurt me more than what it would give me an advantage, just because, like on the weekend, for example, if I traded him out, I would have missed out on a score of 149. I think Briggs ended up scoring quite well in the end. He was pretty lucky. Got a lot of scaling points in the end of that match, but scored 107. But I've always thought that Marshall has a higher ceiling than Briggs, and I think over the course of, how many rounds we got to go? 7 rounds or thereabouts to go. I think Marshall's going to outscore Briggs. It may only be slightly, but I think enough for me to, I guess, hold that advantage over those people that have Briggs, who, again, at a lower ownership percentage, could help you if he outscores Marshall on a given week. But I think, as I said, Marshall's going to outscore Briggs more often than not. So I think that high ownership, it does mitigate that, offset that risk or gamble that I would be taking if I was to trade Marshall instead of Briggs. So let's just roll through the rest of my team. So Mills first up, I'll start with him. 99 first up, was pretty happy with him. He was thrown around at various stages by Horse. He was in the midfield, thrown back, then back in the midfield again, and ended up scoring quite well in the end. I think that's probably to be expected. Warner's going to be out, they've said, for another week, potentially 2. I reckon it could be beyond that because I don't know if it's been widely reported, but he had sustained a tear in his calf. I don't know the extent of the tear, but a tear in the calf is a little bit worse than a strained calf. So I think he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks, but who knows? We'll just wait and see on that. But I think, I sort of took the gamble on Mills at that lower price point, as a lot of us already did. I think he was in around about 2% of teams, and he's jumped up to 11% ownership off the back of the weekend, and I think that will still continue to rise. He's still at a very juicy price point, 427,100, went up 23k on the weekend, and his break-even now is 39, so he's projected to go up 19.8k off the back of a projected score, which is 83, which he could exceed, and I think at this point, if you can score between 90 and 100 as my M8, I'll be super happy with that. And especially at the price point that I brought him in at. You've got to remember as well, at the price point you're bringing in these guys, every score that they're scoring above their current average is a win. And, you've got to keep that in mind. I think a lot of those people that brought in Himmelberg, keep that in mind as well, because I know some are pretty annoyed at the fact that he only scored around about 90 on the weekend, maybe 80 the game before that. But keep in mind that he's 411,000. And yeah, for the scores that he's punching out, they're above his current average. So in that case, it's more of a win. Even if he is a D6, I think you've got to be happy with that. If he's any more than a D6, like a D5, D4, all that sort of stuff, then I think he's probably not filling the role. Ideally, he would be a D7 off the bench. As more of a loop on cover, which I would have liked to have used Mills as, but with 2 trades remaining, I'm not willing to take that gamble. And as I said, I'm quite happy with what he can produce. We all know the ceiling that he can hit as well. Mills, he was rated. Where was he? I think he was the top. Oh, there you go. He was rated the 4th best scorer. I think that was overall, not just in midfield. And we all saw the big scores that he had on the right-hand side here, as you can see. 130, 214, who can forget that, 139, 167. And he kind of tapered away towards the end of the season there. Again, different role. He was thrown back into defence. But I think with Warner being out in the short term, that will definitely help his scoring from here on out. So let's roll through the rest of the team, and we have Nicky Dacos. He was, if you tuned into our weekly podcast or vodcast here on YouTube, you would have heard that he was outside of Neil, my top captaincy option that I chose. Liam went for Lachie Neale. I couldn't choose him, unfortunately, because I chose Neil the week before in our captaincy head-to-head. If you don't know what that is, tune into our podcast and vodcast, but virtually it's a little, competition that we have going from week to week. Where if you choose your best captaincy option one week, you can't choose them the following week. So I couldn't choose Neil this week, considering that I chose him the previous week. So I opted for Dacos, and it turned out not too bad. He would have scored 139 if I went for him, and I was keen to put the VC on him, but I thought, as is sort of my strategy from here on out, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that from week to week now that there's less to talk about in terms of trades. But my theory is putting the VC on your best captaincy option, which is obviously Neil, and a lot of people would have gone for him, kind of speaks for itself. And if he was to fail, it would have meant that I could go for another backup option, which in this case would have been Zach Merritt, who was thrown up there as an option, and Dawson as well was someone else who I liked in the later games. Reason being is a lot of people would be using the VC option on a player in an earlier game, which meant that they'd only be able to fall back on Neil as the best captaincy option with the captain's armband. And if Neil, for example, was tagged out of the game, had a shit game, and scored a sub 100 or around about 100 mark, they obviously would have that score locked in. So with me putting the VC on Neil, if he played shit, I could then put the C on another player and gain the advantage over the rest of the competition, putting the majority of the competition putting the outright C on Neil. So that's kind of my thinking from here on out, just to gain a little bit of advantage. Didn't need to do that on the weekend. Happy enough with that anyway, with the 142. So can't be too displeased, excuse me, with that. So Nicky Dacos, as I said, 139, pretty good. And I'll delve into, at the end of this chat as well, just go through ever so briefly my VC and C options before I've sort of had much of an intense look into things. I haven't really had a look at the fixture next week at all, but we'll go through it in a little bit more detail. And then, of course, we will be, as we normally do, Liam and I going through in very, very high detail the best VC and C options in our podcast and vodcast that will be released on Tuesday evening. So Tom Stewart, 124. Very nice. Just solid scorer. Everyone's got him. Everyone should have him if you don't. Jordan Dawson, likewise, 127. Get him in your side if you don't have him. Jack Sinclair, 96. Not too bad. Sub 100 score. You've got to kind of put the score in context as to where the player is placed in your team. As a D4, I think, I'm probably looking for a little bit of a higher score from him. Obviously, anything below his average isn't up to scratch, but I think as we've seen in recent weeks with his ceiling scores, with a 133 and a 116 even for last week, he does provide nice sort of security there, and he's got a high floor as well from week to week, 31% of teams. So, vastly majority owned in terms of the top scoring teams. Sam Doherty, again, has proven to me to really justify my selection of him a couple of weeks ago, and he scored 108 and a 112 now. And again, he's someone that I've brought in for some really high floor scores. So nice security from week to week. Ever since he's returned from his injury, from round 7 onwards, he's scored 2 scores in the 90s, high 90s as well at that. And his lowest score in that time has been a 77. Outside of that, he scored 100 and 110 plus 120, 135. So again, he is someone that I highly recommend people bring in at a cut price option. He went up 11.2k on the weekend, but again, he's 57.4k below his starting price and proving very, very good value. In 8% of teams now, I think it was in 7% of teams last week or thereabouts. Let me just have a quick squeeze. He only went up in... he's gone up by around about 1,300 ownership, individual team selection-wise, but 8% of teams is very much pod territory for a primo in defence compared to the likes of Dawson, Stewart, Dakes, Sinclair, as I showed. They're all in 40% of teams. For someone of his calibre to be so low owned, I think is, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Briggs, to be a pod like him. And he's got the caliber, he's got the security, he's got the historical scoring that will give you just give that warm fuzzy feeling in the stomach from week to week, knowing that he can score quite well. And his role is perfect as well. He's back to the role that he had last year, just roaming high halfback flanker, roaming up to the wing, intercept marking, all that sort of stuff. So that stuff we absolutely love. So tip of the cap there to you, Dockers. Constable, he was on field for me because I had Mitchell as the emergency with a 55, and I was awfully tempted to put Chincotta onto the field instead of Mitchell. But then I had a look at Chincotta and I'm like, well, in terms of his average, he's averaging around about that anyway, as to what Mitchell scored. So I don't really want to take the risk. If Mitchell had scored a 60, 65, I would have been happy enough with that. So 5 to 10 points off my own sort of benchmark and projection wasn't too bad in retrospect. So that is pretty much that. Moving on to the midfield, and we had Bont with a 123. I know a lot of people put the VC on him. Can't be too displeased with that. It was only 19 points difference between him and Neil. Zach Merritt, as I mentioned earlier, was another sort of captaincy option that I was keen on. Likewise, Liam as well. But we both put the VC on Neil, as we mentioned. And he delivered the absolute goods. So thank you for that, Hobbit. Go back to the Shire and... kick up your feet, mate. You've absolutely earned it. Track, he wasn't tracking too well early on for the pure fact that Goodwin actually played him up for the majority of time, which is really interesting. But he actually kicked 4 goals compared to the previous week where he kicked 4 behinds. So he more than atoned for the week prior. As you can see here on the right-hand side as I scroll down, he scored 4 behinds the previous week, and then he scored 4 goals straight out. So a bit of a sliding doors moment. But ever since I've had him in my side, which has been sort of pre-buys, is actually gone quite well for me. So 120 plus scores, again, shows that high security. He's the second best scoring midfielder now overall. And I think he's only behind Bont. I think Bont's he would be, wouldn't he? The top scoring, top scoring mid overall. So Track is someone that I'm happy with. Goodwin's come out and said that he's going to be played more up forward until Fritsch returns. Again, if he can score goals like he did on the weekend in close enough games and have a real big impact there with stints in the midfield, I think he's still going to be scoring around about his average. So happy enough with that. Rory Laird, 117, atoned for the previous week anyway when he was sub 100. Not too bad in terms of that, so happy enough. Tom Green, he's just kind of the yin and the yang. He has a really good score one week and then shit the next. He's very much in the same realm as a Cogs. Had a couple of good, really good scores actually in the previous 2 weeks, so I can't be too displeased with him. But as you can see there, throughout the season, he scored in the 90s, 80s, 70s. But again, he's so highly owned, 35% in the top tier of teams up there in ranks. If he has a poor week, if he has a good week, doesn't really matter. It's going to affect everyone that owns him. So Sammy Walsh, he has more than rewarded us, especially me. I reckon I got him in around about round 12 off the back of the 105, and he hasn't really delivered, and he dropped around about, actually dropped a fair bit in price. I think I got him in earlier than that. It might have been around 10. It would have been around about round 10, and he dropped, 80k or thereabouts. So whoever picked him up on the weekend would have got a really nice bargain. But either way, I think if you're looking to bring in a premo, he's someone to bring in. He played, I reckon, his best game all year against Freo, bar maybe round 6 against the Saints when he played pretty well and had 38 disposals. But yeah, he was immense. He was really good around the stoppages, tackling, everything. He is back to full flight, I think. So, and Carlton is as well, to their credit. But tip of the cap to him, and I'd consider bringing him in if you haven't got him already. Callum Mills, spoke to him, happy enough with him. Mitch Johnson, unfortunate for those people that fielded him, he was subbed, only on 34. Took a bit of a hit in terms of if you're using him as a bit of a cash cow, because his break-even's up to 84. And he only played, 68 minutes, which is frustrating from Longmuir, really. Because we all know what he's capable of. The previous couple of weeks, a 99 and 70, and then to play less game time, and then again less CBAs, I imagine, as well. Let's just have a quick look at this. So I wonder who he lost CBAs to. So where is he? MJ. Again, only 13%, which is really surprising. I thought he would have picked up a lot of the slack with Fife being out of the team. But it looks like James Aish, I think he played more mid-time to try and tag Walsh late in the game, at least in the second half. And I reckon he was part of the reason as to why he's... I was looking at the wrong one, 35%. So he only picked up a little bit of a jump in CBAs. But again, I reckon he was held back by the fact that Aish was on there, or in the midfield, for the pure tagging role. O'Meara even had less CBAs, likewise Brayshaw. But yeah, interesting state of affairs there at Freo. But I don't know why they don't give him more of a go, because he's a very, very talented player, and I rate him highly. But yeah, unfortunate for those people that played him on field. Dev Robertson, 68, happy with him. I think now his break-even year is 23. Continues to make cash if you do need a late-season cash cow to sort of keep making bank in order to trade out in 2% of teams. But again, he just provides a bit of... security off the bench and cover if need be. I would have happily used him as a bit of cover for dunks, but again, I don't really have a forward mid swing in terms of a playing premo. I only have that in the form of Roberts, and yeah, it's not going to help me with regards to that. English, again, 130, punching out a massive score. Super happy with the big dog there. Literally, he is really cementing his spot as the best scoring ruckman from here on out, and for good reason. Like, look at his scores across the journey. He's recapturing that score line that he was punching out from week to week early in the season. 133, 127, and a 130. And this week he comes up against Hickey in Sydney. So and then after that he's got his. He's facing Essendon, who his average is 127 against. He scored a 204 and then 123 the previous two times he's played them. Sydney, he scored 126 and a 152 and a 97. So he should be in the VC category discussions for sure. But we'll get onto that shortly. Marshall, 149, again, as I spoke of him with regards to Briggs, happy enough to have kept him. He's in 49% of teams, so I think they actually were, because he was in 50% of teams. I think there was a few people that traded him. Yeah, I was only about 200 people. They're about to trade him out. But again, he faces Wits, and then he faces North Melbourne, and Cherry is actually... taken the number one ruck mantle with Goldstein being out of the side. I don't know if he's going to be recalled this coming weekend, but if he's not for round 19, he might have a nice day out against Cherry, albeit he's a developing ruckman and actually performing quite well, but he might have a day out against him. So that's the other thing I kept into consideration with Marshall is his run over the next few weeks isn't too bad before running into a couple of tougher matchups. And then Carlton as well don't have a ruckman at the moment. So again, might go well against them. Josh Dunkley, hopefully he's back this week. I think Fagan said that they're not going to rush him back, so all indications are that he may actually miss this coming round as well, which is going to be unfortunate for those people who don't have cover off the bench. I was able to use Sheasel. It was either Sheasel or Mitchell, doesn't matter where they're placed, but if Sheasel's in D6, then Mitchell's here off the bench covering Dunkley, which is virtually what I was doing. I just wanted to sort of loop, if I needed to, Mitchell off the bench. If he performed like absolute shit or got injured, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but Chin Cotter was the backup there. So Shees came on, 65, not the best again, but just harping back to the ownership side of things, he's in 67% of teams. So with these shit scores, just keep perspective that the fact that it's not only affecting you, but it's affecting 67% of other teams in the competition. So it's not going to affect you as much. It's only those 33% of coaches that don't own him that are going to be having a little bit of a leg up on the competition, which by this stage won't be many of the top 1,000. So yeah, he's sort of more of a luxury upgrade, and I'll speak to him a little bit later as to what my plans are with him if I am able to have the trades to afford a luxury upgrade. Rosie at 95, not too bad with him, pretty happy enough. Cogs at 119, I reckon he was pretty hard done by Champion Data. I know his disposal efficiency was down, but he ended up kicking, three goals, yeah, had 30 disposals, 8 marks, 4 tackles. He should have scored way more than that, especially in a game that was relatively close throughout most. And they were pretty crucial goals, so I reckon the scaling for him should have gone way up. So it was unfortunate there for him. And Darcy Cameron at 80, again, not too concerned, similar to Callum Mills, who's my M8, with Darcy being the last line and my forward line as an F6. If you can score around about his average of 90 odd, I wouldn't be too displeased with that. And 80 is a little bit below par. He's in 17% of teams. But the main reason why we want to have him is obviously for the fact of having that ruck forward cover if need be. So yeah, an 80 odd in that perspective, in that context, not too bad. Ryan Marrick, I think a lot of people had him off the bench covering for Dunkley. Scored a 44 I reckon it was probably around about par, I reckon. So you can't be too unhappy with that. But again, if Dunks misses, you're going to have to use him again, but just be happy with the fact that you've got cover, because there are some teams out there that have zilch. Just ask Abs Magic, the Skodfather, the poor bloke, who had to run with a couple of donuts on the weekend. Harry Sheasel, as I said, 65, not too bad. So let's quickly optimize our team and just get everything back into the way it was. Alrighty, so it's automatically put the C on English. So now I reckon we'll have a brief chat about what I could do with the 2 trades. But again, I'm not going to be trading at all. As I said, I'm not going to be trading until I get to round 20 with the 4 rounds to go. So, and again, the main reason being I want to trade every 2 weeks if I need it in that case. And I may run with a gamble of potentially using it strategically, which I'll go into now, which I could be using this week with the return of Sicily. So the main thing with Sicily is the fact that he's 649k. His break-even 63, so again, he could still go up in price, but it is what it is. Faces North Melbourne, and he's in 12% of teams compared to his selection range, which would have been, was in 52k teams, and he's less than that now. So he was around about 30, he was pushing 30% ownership at one stage. Before he got suspended. What I could potentially do, which I couldn't do now because I don't have the money for it, but I could maybe even, trade M. Johnson down to a 102k rookie, and then use that excess cash plus the 100k I've got in the bank to then upgrade a Robertson, which, what's the optimizer done here? It's put Dunkley into the midfield. So I can down trade Johnson to a 102k rookie, bank the 200k odd, put it with the 100k in the bank, have 300k, and then put it towards, which again I wouldn't be able to use until Robertson surpasses the 300k mark. But say, for example, once Dev Rob goes up to around about 320, I could then maybe use the cash to upgrade Robertson to a Sicily, and then have Sheasel as my D7 and my F7. So I wouldn't be able to do that at the moment because both of those guys aren't the price range to do it. I could potentially do it now by trading MJ down to a 102k rookie and then upgrading Seamus Mitchell to Sicily. But by doing that, it would mean that Sheasel would be stuck in defence at D7 and be my permanent D7 cover. But Sicily would go into my, obviously my starting team, into my my top D6 spots. That would provide me with, a little bit of cover off the bench for defence. But again, I wouldn't have that swing because Seamus Mitchell wouldn't be there to allow for it. So that's probably the main reason why, again, it wouldn't be beneficial until I allow Dev Robertson to go up in price and potentially M. Johnson as well, cash him in and then use Robertson as the stepping stone to Sicily and then have D7 reserved for Sheasel and then have Seamus Mitchell at my F7. Excuse me. Dunkley comes back on field and then I'll be able to swing both Seamus Mitchell and Sheasel between my defence and forward line if I do need cover. Now, the one downside to that would be obviously Robertson and Johnson not being in my team, which would mean I wouldn't really have much cover off the bench, if any, in the midfield. So again, that would be a risk. I would be able to use someone like a Dunkley, any of these guys here that have the mid-forward swing, and then I might be able to swing on a Seamus Mitchell, or again, use Harry Sheasel to plug that hole to allow me to swing a genuine premo into the midfield here. So it does provide a little bit of cover with having that Sheasel swing between defence and forward, likewise Seamus Mitchell, and then also in the fact that it covers me for being able to swing guys from the forward line into the midfield. But again, I'm not going to be going down that path until I hit at least round 20 because I want to reserve these trades for injury trades and long suspension trades if need be. Knock on wood, again, that doesn't happen. So yeah, that's pretty much my mindset with regards to the last two trades. Going to be sitting on those. And that's pretty much my team, I think, and what needs to be discussed heading into round 18. So let's delve quickly into my VC and C options without really having looked at all for this coming round as to what teams play what and which players have an advantage over teams. So again, this is going to be very, very brief. Don't take this to the bank. Tune in to our vodcast and podcast we will be releasing for the round 17 review and round 18 preview, which will be released on Tuesday evening, where we'll go into a bit more detail about the best options. So let's just have a quick look through the fixture on the right-hand side here. And as probably a given, the top dogs in Bont and English are probably the two guys to look at in terms of top VC options. Look at SuperCoach Plus, and Bont is projected for a 139. English a 141. As I said, English up against Hickey. Has performed. We'll look at him just very, very quickly first up. He scored a 126, a 152 and a 97 against the Swans in his previous three. Not too bad. Let's have a look at the extended form line against the Swans. So there we go. He scored a 152, 97, 126 and 145. So he's got a very, very decent form line against them. Again, very, very nice recent form line as well to sort of drive that point home with a 133, 127 and a 130 over the previous 3 weeks. So he is definitely up there in terms of VC options first up. And then Marcus Bontempelli speaks for itself. Against the Swans, he's averaging his past three, pretty modest, 114, 108 and 101. We'll just have a look at his extended historical form line against the Swannies. Not too bad beyond that, actually. He scored a 108, 101, 114, 166, 158, 105 and a 140 and then a 92. So not too bad either. I think you probably can't go too wrong. If you don't have English, Bont is someone that you can really fall back on. Hasn't scored below 100 since round 3 where he scored an 89. Ever since then, he's actually scored over 110 every single week, 112 being his lowest score, which again is kind of veering towards the captaincy scores. A little bit below, but not too bad. But it shows that he's got the high floor, and we all know the high ceiling of the 169 odd that he can score that he showed 3 weeks ago against North. The game is being played at the SCG, so they won't have the advantage of Marvel under the roof. But yeah, he's definitely an option, but I think I would probably go for English over Bont. English, he's actually in 47% of teams. Well, I didn't realise he was so highly owned. So he's probably more of a pod option, I think, in terms of those people that own Bont and English. I'll be very surprised. Actually, no, I'd be surprised to see as to which people go for, but I reckon it's going to be a 50-50 coin flip as to who they go for. Outside of those two boys, Melbourne and Brisbane, Lachie Neale, trying to think, I don't think they'd run a tagger through Neale. If Dunks doesn't play, again, there's more slice of the pie to go around in terms of points. So he could be someone to look at. He scored 143 and 142 over the previous 2 weeks now, albeit against either poor opposition or leaky opposition in terms of Richmond giving away bulk points, and West Coast as well, to opposition mids. But he's an option. Petrarca, again, I'm worried about his scoring ceiling now and scoring floor, just because of the fact he's spending more time up forward. But again, he scored around about 120 over his previous 3 weeks. So he's an option. And then Dacos against Freo, again at the MCG. He's someone that I'd be looking very, very closely at. Just an absolute, I reckon he'll go bananas, and I reckon they might try and use James Aish to run with him. But I don't know if he'll be able to keep up. He scored a 132, 149 and 139 over the previous 3 weeks. So he is up there in terms of one of my top VC options. And a C as well if the likes of an English or a Bont fail. St Kilda up against Gold Coast, maybe Jack Steele, only really hit form on the weekend for the first time in ages. Marshall up against Wits, that might be a tough matchup for him. So I'm not too confident in Marshall up against Wits. Moving on to the next game, Carlton up against Port. Walsh has only really just hit top form. And yeah, wouldn't be going with him. Port, Rosie, maybe Butters, maybe, no. Geelong up against Essendon, who actually, I think they concede quite a few points to opposition mids as well. So check this out on DFS Australia. I always say this, but I say it for good reason. Got a defence V position, and it shows you those points of the, or parts of the field that teams give up points to oppositions in those particular parts of the field. So where are we? Essendon, they give up the third most points to designated kickers. And they're right up there in terms of general defenders. So ticks the box for both Stewart in those positions there. So he could be potentially an option, captaincy option probably at this point in the round. Scored a 147 and a 124 in his past 2, maybe. Moving on to Adelaide and the Giants. Dawson, yes, speaks for itself. Where are we? Historically, not too bad. Oh, actually pretty bad against the Giants. And Laird, yeah, it's probably likewise as well. So I don't know about those two boys from a matchup standpoint. But yeah, Dawson's probably in better recent form than Laird, SuperCoach-wise. North up against Hawthorn. No, there's no one really there either side. And then West Coast up against Richmond. That's pretty much a given. I think Taranto could be potentially an option. Again, as I said before, they concede points to opposition mids and pretty much everywhere on the ground. But I don't know if you'd be confident in putting the outright captaincy on Taranto, considering his previous couple of weeks he's been down on form majorly and had a bit of attention as well. And that pretty much covers it, I think, in terms of the main guys that I've got in my team. Merritt as well. Sorry, I forgot about Merritt. In good recent form as well. I think he enjoys playing the Cats. No, maybe not. Maybe it's Parish. 168, 136 over his past couple of weeks, 126 prior to that. Not too bad. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I reckon I'll go at this stage English VC into Dakes C very, very early on. Again, check out our proper, our full vodcast and podcast coming out of round 17 heading into round 18. We will go into a bit more detail, but hopefully, and I'm going to be optimistic here and put Dunks back on field and relegate Seamus to the emergency and just manifest the return of Dunks because that'd be quite nice. And it'd be the first time that I think I've had a full premo team score with a full array of primos. So let's manifest it. But anyway, ladies and gents, that's I've actually pushed this length of this chat to 40 minutes. So there we go. I've given you a bit more bang for your buck there. But again, if you have any comments, questions with regards to your own team, trades, trading candidates, which I'll just quickly scroll down here, early days. And a lot of people are trading in Seamus Mitchell now that his break-even's risen up as a bit of a stepping stone, presumably to maybe a James Sicily. So he is someone to obviously target this week. Butters, he's dropped another 25.7k and his break-even's still high over 141. So I'd be holding off on him if you can. Luke Ryan had a big breakout score. But again, I wouldn't be worried about him. I'd be going for Doherty, as I said. Don't be fooled by recency bias there, because Luke Ryan, I reckon he's going to be made to play more accountable, especially off the back of the game against Carlton, where he was pretty much just roaming around. Sure, he got a few intercept marks, but largely his role, he didn't really lock down on Curnow or Harry Mackay, and that's why they got hurt as well from those tools. So I reckon Longmuir, and it's not converting to wins either. It's not really helping. So I reckon there's a chance that he could be playing a bit more of a lockdown role over the few weeks to come. And Jack Steele, he's pretty good value as well off the back of that return to form game. Harry Sheasel, people are starting to trade him out. Chincotta, MJ, and Dunkley. But I'll keep the faith with Dunks. Don't be trading him out, especially if you've only got 2 trades like me. But yeah, he's in that many teams at the moment that you don't want to be left without him when he does return. So I'd be holding fire with him. But that's pretty much it. If you've enjoyed the content, feel free to give us a like and subscribe below. Help us tick across closer to the 1K mark, because it'll just mean that you'll reap the rewards and dividends when we do hit that 1K mark in terms of extra cash leagues, giveaways, prizes, all that sort of stuff across heading into 2024 if we can hit it before the season finishes this year. And that's pretty much it. As I said, leave any comments, questions below. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, not so much Instagram because I don't really check messages there. But yeah, as I said, tune into our podcast and vodcast, which will be released on Tuesday evening. And you can leave any comments in there also as well that come to your mind. But that's pretty much it for another edition of Damo's Team Talk. If there's anything I've forgotten, I'll maybe list it down in the comment section below. But again, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a sub, and we'll catch you same time, same place. We'll see you next time. All the best.